I'd like to invite Pastor Sawtell to step up and lead us with her benediction, her invocation. We don't need a benediction this early.
I hope, well, you know, it would be nice if we could do an invocation and then do the benediction and we'd be out of here. But I think we're supposed to do a little business today, so maybe we'll hold off on the benediction for a little while. Let us lift our hearts to God. Eternal Spirit, Creator of all that is and that will be, we give you thanks for this day and the beauty of this region in which we live. Help us to be good stewards of what you have given us, that the bounty of the sea may continue to sustain our future generations. Help us protect the beauty of the area, that all may come to visit and share in its many gifts. As we gather this day as family, friends, and neighbors to discuss the business of the town, help us to always respect what others may say, even when we disagree, for all are your children, and each has been given the ability to think and speak and decide for ourselves. We are blessed to live in a country where each person is encouraged to think and speak for her or himself and to vote according to their conscience. As we discuss the various areas of the budget to be funded, let us consider the needs of all in our community and seek to make decisions that will care for all to the best of our abilities. Help us to make decisions of justice, balanced by acts of mercy. Bless all who have taken the time from their busy lives to be a part of this democratic process. Bless our town and region, that we may continue to enjoy your bounteous gifts. In the name of the one who created and sustains us. Amen.
Amen. This is not going to... Yesterday, you did some voting, and the results of that I will announce now. On your vote for selectman, Tricia Warren won with 121 votes. Selectman Wendy Wolf with 222 votes prevailed on her ballot. Trustee of the Boothbay Harbor Sewer District, Steve Lorraine with 267 votes. School committee member Stephanie Hawk with 269 votes. Your sewer district trustee, James Stromont, with 256 votes. On the water district, Kenneth Marston with 268 votes. You had article number 4 on today's warrant to see if the town would vote to adopt, ratify, and confirm the agreement legally mandated by legislation that was entered on October 25th, 2013 between the town of Boothbay Harbor and Bayview Village Corporation that defines and clarifies physical boundaries for Bayview Village. That article was adopted by 247 votes. And then in your cemetery district, you elected John Arsenault with 276 votes. Now, before I call the meeting to order formally, I'm going to turn this over to Tom, your town manager, to give you a brief overview of some of the points that we're going to be dealing with. Tom?
Thank you, Irv. Good morning, everyone. At the front, there's some handouts that explain the comparisons of the budget you're about to review this year versus last year's budget. There are also town reports that are over there. And before I get going with some of my announcements, I'd just like to thank Julia Latter, Trish Fallon, and Michelle Farnham for putting together the town report. Another beautiful job. Thank you. For the past 8 years, the municipal budget's remained roughly flat at $4 million. The budget you're going to be reviewing today is down slightly versus the one we're currently in. The Budget Committee and the Selectmen agree on all warrant articles except one. The one article where they differ is on the regional ambulance service. The Budget Committee recommends funding them flat as last year, and the Board of Selectmen recommend funding them as they requested this year. So there's a difference in that warrant article you'll see of $16,000. I would like to thank the department heads, Budget Committee, Board of Selectmen for all your hours of hard work in putting these budgets together and reviewing them. I think there's another very sound budget going forward at town meeting this year. Thank you. Congratulations to Wendy Wolf, on your re-election, and to Tricia Warren. I look forward to working with you. The warrant articles are bundled again this year as they were in the last few years, but that's just for convenience sake. We can certainly discuss each of the line items within those bundles as we do each year. And when we get to the LD1 article, if it's all right with you, I'll come back up and just review what that's about again. That's after all the financials. And that's all I have for announcements, other than thank you again, Irv, for doing our town meeting. We appreciate it. Okay. Thank you.
Right now, just before we start, I'm going to invite those new officials or re-elected officials to come up and be sworn in by Michelle. So thank you all, and welcome to this year's annual town meeting. In moderating this, we'll be following the guidelines set out in the main moderator's manual as adopted in the 6th edition in 2005. I would ask you to come to the microphone if you have a question or comment, and give us your name and your address. I will recognize as many as I can. If we're going through on a particular article, I will give preference to someone who hasn't spoken over someone who has already spoken on that article, but we'll try and get everybody's opportunity to make your points and get through the 30 or so articles that we have to deal with here this morning. So, starting out with Article 5. Which is to see if the town will accept the alewives fishing rights pursuant to the Department of Marine Resources rules on the West Harbor Pond for the year 2016, and that said pond shall remain closed for conservation. Is there a motion to put that article on the floor? And is there a second? Are there any questions or comments about Article 5? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting Article 5 indicate by raising your hand. Any opposed? No opposed, that's a vote, and that article is adopted. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to authorize the town collector or treasurer to accept payments of taxes not yet committed pursuant to 36 Maine Revised Statute, Section 506. Is there a motion to put that on the floor?
So moved.
And a second. Question about Article 6. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor of adopting Article 6 as presented? Yes. Any opposed? That's a vote. Adopting that. Now, on Article 7, to see if the town will vote to establish a date when taxes are due and payable and to fix a rate of interest on delinquent taxes. Whoever moves this needs to include a date and an interest rate. The selectmen recommend that taxes be due on receipt of tax bills with an interest rate of 7% per year to start on September 10, 2015, and for the first installment, and on March 11, 2016 for the second installment. Okay. It's moved and seconded that the town set a date of September 10 and March 11 for the two installments and an interest rate of 7%. Are there any questions or comments on Article 7? All in favor of adopting Article 7 indicate by raising your hands. And any opposed? Article 7 is adopted. Again, we need to have the motion include an interest rate. Article 8 is to see if the town will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes pursuant to 36 Maine Revised Statute, Section 504-4A. Is there a motion? The selectmen recommend 7%. Is there a motion? It's moved and seconded. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor of adopting Article 8 indicate by raising your hand. Any opposed? At this rate, we'll be out of here by 9:30, Tom. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the overlay to pay tax abatements and applicable interest granted during the fiscal year. A motion. And second. Second. Moved and seconded to see if the town will vote to appropriate the overlay to pay tax abatements and applicable interest granted during this fiscal year. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor of adopting Article 9 indicate by raising your hand. Are there any opposed? That Article 9 is adopted. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to authorize the municipal officers on behalf of the town to sell and convey any real estate acquired by the town for non-payment of taxes under such terms and conditions as they deem advisable and to execute a quitclaim deed for such property. Motion? And second? It's moved and seconded to authorize the town to dispose of tax-acquired property. Any questions or comments? All in favor of adopting Article 10 indicate by raising your hand. Are there any opposed? Okay, Article 10 is adopted. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to authorize the municipal officers to make final determinations regarding the closing or opening of roads due to winter maintenance pursuant to 23 Maine Revised Statute, Section 2953. Is there a motion? It's moved and seconded to allow the municipal officers to open and close roads. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Any opposed? That's a vote. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to authorize municipal officers to dispose of any town-owned personal property under such terms and conditions as they deem advisable. A motion? It's moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Any opposed? Article 12 is adopted. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to authorize the municipal officers to carry forward any unexpended account balance they deem advisable, provided that the account carried forward is used for the same purpose and to fund any expenditures exceeding the budget from the undesignated fund balance. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor of adopting Article 13 indicate by raising your hands, and any opposed. Article 13 is adopted. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to authorize the municipal officers to accept any state funds received by the town and to appropriate any funds received for a particular purpose to that purpose. Funds received but not dedicated to a particular purpose are appropriated for such uses in terms and conditions as the municipal officers deem advisable. Is there a motion and any second? Is there a second?
Second.
Yep.
Oh. Thank you. And are there any questions or comments about such funds? All in favor of adopting Article 14 indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? Article 14 is adopted. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to authorize the municipal officers to apply for, accept, and administer any state, federal, or private grant they deem advisable. Motion? Second?
Second.
Any questions on the receipt of state, federal, or private grants? All in favor of adopting that article indicate by raising your hands. And any opposed? Nobody's opposed. Article 15 is adopted. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to authorize the municipal officers on behalf of the town to accept gifts and donations and to appropriate those gifts and donations for purposes which they deem, for which they received under such terms and conditions as they deem advisable. A motion on Article 16.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded on Article 16. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor of adopting Article 16 as presented, raise your hands. And any opposed? That's a vote. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to adopt the 2014-2015 comprehensive plan. A locally adopted comprehensive plan that is consistent with state guidelines is legally required to substantiate zoning ordinances and to qualify the community for preference for various state grant programs. A copy of this proposed plan is on file with the town clerk, and one has been posted on the town's website. This is like an ordinance where you may only vote it up or down and no amendments, but if there are any questions or any description requested of what this is including, now is the time to move to put this before the House. It's moved. Is it seconded? Okay. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Your name and address and at the microphone.
I know the drill.
I knew you did.
I've only got one question. Is the 2000?
But you didn't give your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Link sample, 84 Oak Street, Boothbay Harbor, Maine. For
Thank
all
you.
of you that don't know who I am. The 2014-2015 comprehensive plan, is that substantially different than the 2013-2014 comprehensive plan? Any huge?
What if any
differences?
modifications have been made?
Bob, do you want to answer that one?
Somebody?
We'll let him.
Go first. Go ahead.
You're the answerer, okay.
Okay, the question was,
Are there any significant changes to the new plan from the old plan, and if so, what are those
the old
changes?
plan was just an earlier draft of the plan that you have now before you, so there are no significant changes.
Thank you. Now, Bob, wait a moment. Tell us who you are.
I'm Bob Faunce. I'm with the Lincoln County Regional Planning Commission. I've been working with the committee and the selectmen on this plan for actually quite a while now.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions or comments? So all in favor of adopting the 2014-2015 comprehensive plan indicate by raising your hand. Is there anybody opposed? Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Link. We're now on to Article 18 to see if the town will vote to authorize municipal officials to carry over previously approved funding into the next budget cycle, if necessary, and put in a reserve account to facilitate the town's commitment to the Route 27 sidewalk project. This amount was previously approved and raised in the amount of $25,065. Is there? It's moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Article 18. Any questions about Article 18? Yes, sir.
Once again, link sample, Boothbay Harbor, Maine, 84 Oak Street. What is the status of the Route 27 sidewalk project, and how long are we going to hold on to this $25,000 in hopes to get this?
It's my understanding, Link, that they plan to begin construction in 2016. Mary, you may know more about the sidewalk project than I do.
Can you hold the microphone, please, so we can hear you? I just had asked that question of Michael LaBerge, who is with the MDOT department that we're dealing with, and the construction funds have been allocated for us, but they anticipate construction will be in 2016. MDOT is still working on right-of-ways that they requested, and they're taking care of that. So everything is on project, and the construction funds are there, but it should occur in 2016.
Yes, sir.
Link sample, 84.
We know who you are.
Boothbay Harbor, Maine.
We got it.
You're the one that wanted it. Who's going to be on the hook to maintain this sidewalk?
Who's on the hook to maintain this sidewalk?
In the provision, when the towns applied for that, the maintenance of the sidewalk is done jointly by the towns of Boothbay and Boothbay Harbor.
Jointly by the towns of Boothbay and Boothbay Harbor. Okay, the selectmen recommend passage of this article. Are there other questions or comments? All in favor of adopting Article 18, indicate by raising your hands. Anyone opposed? Unopposed? And that passes. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to authorize municipal officers to carry over previously approved funding into the next budget cycle if necessary and put in a reserve account to complete the renovation of the town-owned property adjacent to the Boothbay Region High School parking lot. The amount previously approved and raised is $15,000, and the selectmen recommend the passage of this article. Does anybody move the article?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions about Article 19? All in favor of adopting Article 19 indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? And that's approved. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to use and appropriate estimated revenues to reduce the property tax commitment. Is there a motion with regard to estimated revenues?
So moved.
There's moved and seconded. The selectmen and the budget committee recommend the amount of $947,156. Questions about this? All in favor of adopting?
No, you had a question.
I'm sorry.
Just kind of a housekeeping issue. We've got two Article 19.
Yes, we noticed that.
We're working. We're working on the second Article 19.
Will this be 19B?
Okay. We'll call it 19B. All right. In any event, it's on the floor for your consideration. Questions? All right. All in favor of adopting Article 19, which includes the $947,156 amount, indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? Okay, Article 19B has been adopted. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $2,776,013 for the town of Boothbay Harbor's municipal budget. The Selectmen and the Budget Committee recommend that amount, $2,776,013, and it's broken down as set out on the warrant with $97,240 for capital account, $108,300 for debt service, $132,868 for administrative account, $48,965 for the assessing account, $66,579 for the contract services account, $2,800 for supplemental account, $98,707 for the finance account, $88,500 for the insurance account, $12,875 for meetings and elections, $74,387 for municipal buildings and vehicles, $38,712 for the selectmen's account, $71,646 for the town clerk, $95,474 for the town maintenance manager account, $200,000 for the paving and construction account, $449,461 for public works, $24,146 for public restrooms, $109,360 for the winter operations account, $7,323 for the animal control account, $3,918 for emergency management account, $77,676 for the code enforcement office, $85,626 for the fire department account, $33,265 for the harbor maintenance account, $7,583 for the pump out account, $763,130 for the police account, $36,472 for the parking account, and $41,000 for the welfare account. As I said, this is recommended by both the Selectmen Committee and the Budget Committee. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Yes, ma'am. She's first. I'll get you second, sir.
Sarah Folger, Powder Hill Farm Road, Boothbay Harbor. I have a question regarding the welfare budget. It looks like it's we'll be looking at $4,500 less than last year, and I'm wondering, is that based on the fact that we spent last year less last year than the year before? Is that right? Okay. So we're spending less on welfare now than we have in the past.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Because I had heard somebody, lots of rumors. I'd heard somebody say that that we were actually spending more than we ever have before. Okay, this is good news. Thank you.
Yes, sir, you had a question or comment.
Norm Pierce, Hutchinson Drive. Give Link a break here. We have an increase in the selectmen's budget, $23,459. I don't remember anything being said about giving them a raise. Can somebody explain that, please?
I can answer that. This year, there's a new line item in the Selectmen's budget for economic development, and they put $20,000 in that line item for economic development.
And the other 12?
The other 12?
25.
It's 25.
25, excuse me.
25.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Now, the next thing is Public Works. After the winter that they've just busted their butts with, you've docked them $39,000. How are we going to get away with that?
Are you looking at the winter operations budget?
No, just Public Works.
Well, there's a significant difference in the paving and construction budget. There's a $65,000 decrease there.
Yep.
That's the majority of it.
Okay, all right. Very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments about these accounts? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of adopting the Article 20 as presented indicate by raising your hand. Any opposed? And Article 20 passes. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,006,742 for streetlights, hydrants, Boothbay Region Refuse Disposal District, and Bayville Isle of Springs accounts. The Selectmen and the Budget Committee recommend that amount, which is broken down as $45,000 for streetlights, $471,612 for hydrants, $400,130 for the refuse disposal district, and $90,000 for the Bayville Isle of Springs account. Is there a motion for Article 21 to be on the floor?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions about Article 21 and the accounts? Yes, ma'am.
Margaret Parrott, Townsend Avenue. The item for streetlights, what is that money used for?
That's Central Maine Power's bill for the streetlights. We pay for the electricity for the streetlights.
I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but the town has been really more than half dark this winter. I counted one night coming from West Harbor Pond over to my house, 11 streetlights that were out. And I called Central Maine Power, and I came by the town office, and I was told that if I would give them the number on each of the poles, that they'd come and put the lights back on. Now, every pole had a huge snow drift around it, and I'm not very game anymore, so I didn't do that. But I'm concerned about the fact that the town is still dark. This may not be the appropriate place to ask the question, but how do we fix that?
Well, we need to get the numbers off the polls and report them to CMP. So why don't we do that next week?
Wonderful.
Fine.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of adopting Article 21 as it's been put before us indicate by raising your hands. Are there any opposed? Article 21 is adopted. Article 22 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $124,089 for the support organizations accounts, which are laid out here, and the Selectmen and the Budget Committee both recommend the $124,089 with $14,000 to the Cemetery District, $28,029 to cable channel, community cable channel, $5,000 for fireworks, $2,500 for Harbor Lights Festival, $2,000 for Historical Society, $500 for the Memorial Days American Legion account, $45,000 for the Memorial Library account, $1,155 for New Hope for Women, $800 for Senior Citizens account. Hey, that ought to be higher. $1,000 for the summer band concerts, $23,905 for the district nurses account, and $200 for the Spectrum Generations account. Can we have a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded for the support organizations accounts. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Oh, ma'am. Sorry.
I have two questions. The first
Name?
one, Mary Lee Brown, 133 Atlantic Avenue. The first question is that I see that there is no funding here for the community band, and there always has been. And they are an asset to our community. They work hard. I used to be a member, and I think that should be a consideration under this article.
Question is, why isn't...
Just so you know, Mary Lee, there was no request for funding put in this year.
Okay. Can I request it?
Second question.
We can't raise money on the floor here.
The second question is the cemetery district. Now, every year you people try to cut them down $1,000. Every year their costs go up. They have a amount of money that is set aside that they cannot spend. They can spend the interest only, and you know what the bank rate interest rates are. Now, if you want the place to look nice and continue the work they've done for the upgrading and really fixing up the cemeteries, you got to spend at least another $1,000 so they can operate. Thank you.
Any other points to raise about Article 22? Is this a resident?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Lori Perkins, Townsend Ave. Can you just tell me why the down on the district nurse?
State your question again.
The district nurse, the budget went down?
Well, that's the amount that they requested.
All right. Is it reduced in hours, or did they give you any reason?
I didn't ask, Lori. I was happy that their budget had gone down.
All right. Just thanks.
She can answer the question.
Somebody else can answer the question? Yes?
We raised more money as requested by the selectmen 2 years ago.
Thank you.
Good job.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Debbie Mullen, 62 Oak Street. I'm the coordinator for the Boothbay Region Seniors, and I was wondering why the fund went down to $800 from previous years. It's always been $1,000.
I'll defer to the selectmen and the budget committee for that one.
I think what we did this year is we had a request from Spectrum Generations, which is the organization that supports senior citizens, and they came to us with a rather large request. And one of the things they do is, well, they do many things, but one of the really valuable things they do is training and education and support for things like Medicare and other valuable services for seniors. So we gave them $200, and given the what we felt that the senior citizens group used the money for, we felt that overall we were spending the same $1,000 for seniors in the region.
The money that we use for our seniors is for their lunch. And we have 2 meetings a month, and the membership has gone from last year from around 35 to this year we're up to around 54. And $800 is, you know, we get the money from the 3 towns for their lunches, and they also put in $3 of their own money towards the lunch, and it's $8 a person, so it's going to be rough. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, and that kind of information will certainly be built into future discussions. Just procedurally, we have a article that has a fixed dollar amount, and so for the town meeting, you are in a position where you can reduce that, but you cannot increase it at this time. Yes, sir, you had a question or comment?
Conrad Chokey, 105 Emery Lane, Boothbay Harbor. I am relatively new to Boothbay Harbor. I did live in Wiscasset. I was part of Senior Spectrum, our Spectrum Generations, and they do some wonderful work. However, I would recommend to the Selectmen and Budget Committee that at least next year take a look at what Spectrum Generation really does for this part of the peninsula. I believe they do very limited amount. There are a lot of organizations in the Boothbay Harbor region that does a lot of work for seniors, and Spectrum Generations doesn't really do that much here. So I would say take a real hard look at what they do down here. They are a wonderful organization. I won't down them, but I don't think they do that much in the Boothbay Harbor region.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, let me just speak to that for a moment, because Spectrum Generations actually came and did a very detailed presentation to the committees. This was, I believe, the first time they've come and had a request which was far more substantial than what you see here reflected in the budget. And we did look at the demographics and the number of people served in the Boothbay Harbor region. So we paid great attention to the amount of service provided and felt that there were very vulnerable people that they were providing probably more intensive services rather than a high number of services, and we felt some degree of support was warranted. But thank you for those comments.
We have before us Article 22 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $124,089 for the support organizations accounts. Any further questions? Mary Lee. Today, at this meeting, you cannot do that. Well, if
the wording of the warrant article changed years ago to make it so that you couldn't raise it on the floor. That's what happened. But that's been in, this same wording has been in effect for years.
Yes,
just one point. If you look on page 129, the Cemetery District report, you'll see that the Cemetery District both received and payables gave them a net positive balance. The Cemetery District has a lot of responsibilities, but they did have a net positive balance in their 2014 financials. And we've talked a long time about the funding for all of the support organizations. So I don't want people to think this was a cavalier decision, but we do look at what the organizations have in terms of expenses and revenue and try and be, I guess, parsimonious with the town's money, particularly when organizations are having a net return on their finances in the year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Amy Sawtell, 79 Townsend, Boothbay Harbor. Would it be possible to take $200 out of the fireworks fund and place that with the senior citizens fund to make sure that those meals are provided for our seniors? It would not affect the bottom line. It would just affect those two lines.
Well, I'm going to rule that the numbers that are on the warrant here make this unamendable, except for reductions.
I'm the relative newcomer, and this was my first year on both the select board, which I didn't realize meant I also had to attend all the budget meetings, so that was a very pleasant surprise. But I will say I'm very impressed with the thoroughness that the budget is worked out between the select board and the budget committee. And one of the issues with, say, taking from one category to the other is that we go over each category line by line and discuss it between the budget committee and the selectmen, and the organizations that are interested in these items are invited to come to those meetings and either advocate or, cajole on their behalf. I will say that the business community, I suspect, and the chamber would probably have some degree of reservation about pulling from the fireworks account. And one of the things we spent for a long time this last year is working with Boothbay on thinking about how we improve economic development within the town. And that does mean some commitment to supporting activities that help support the business climate. So I'm not trying to pit seniors against fireworks, but I will say that changing this within the town meeting does not give those who feel this is important to bring tourists in and show town support would probably have some issue that we made the decision on the fly.
Yes.
May I speak? While I understand what you're trying to push for economic support, we've increased the fireworks budget by $2,000. And we've reduced our senior citizens' lunch budget by $200, a tenth of that. And I'm only asking us to cut that increase by that 10% mark so that our seniors get adequate nutrition twice a month. And I think we're taking people against fireworks. I'm sorry, I just don't see how that balances out.
Okay, the moderator has ruled that you cannot make the type of change which is being requested procedurally at this meeting. You may ask to appeal that ruling by me and have the House rule on it, but for now, that's where it stands. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Palmer Payne, Chairman of the Budget Committee. The time for the debate of this sort is during the hearings of the Budget Committee jointly with the Board of Selectmen, January, February, and March. They're published, and they are open to the public, and they are sparsely, if ever, attended by the public. And that's really the time that you can have a better input before it's set into concrete as it is now. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Andrew Marvin, Sunset Road, Boothbay Harbor, Maine. I'd like to know, can you tell me how the moderator has authority to just say it's going to be as it's written?
The rules of the set out by the Maine Municipal Association that we're operating under, the moderator's manual, and I believe in I'm not sure whether in statutory law, but is that on articles where there is an amount put in by the selectmen in the article body, that amount may not be increased. It may be decreased, but it may not be increased.
Well, overall, we aren't increasing the article.
And I have ruled that modifying these, because the numbers are all published, may not be dealt with here. You may reduce any of them, but you may not increase them. If you wish to appeal that ruling, the House may do that, but my ruling is that you can't do that here today.
The only other question or comment I make is the $5,000 for the fireworks committee. There's a huge push by the fireworks committee to raise additional funds. So I don't think a $200 reduction, although you ruled against it, would actually kill them. And the other thing you said, Selectman Wolf, that, others might be, upset about us making changes here. And if they aren't here, I guess you know how I feel about that.
Good point. Well taken.
Thank you. Ms. Folger?
I think I understand what's happening here. Sarah Folger, 33 Powder Hill Farm Road, Boothbay Harbor. We live in what is demographically the oldest town in the oldest county in the oldest state in the nation, and we're going to cut our meager senior citizen budget from $1,000 to $800, and our only recourse over this relatively small matter is to vote the budget down. That's what I'm hearing. Is that true?
You may vote it up or down, but I've said you can't change the numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sample?
Having already been recognized by name by the moderator, I will not introduce myself. Just a couple of points. I agree in some way with Budget Committee member Palmer Payne that the Budget Committee meetings are the first place to question this, but certainly not the only place to question this. Selectman Wolf, you said that you felt a need to be parsimonious with town funds, but the amount of ill will that is generated every year by the bickering over what budgetarily is peanuts far outweighs the savings that you present us in this particular article. We have to pay for the cemetery district, I get that. The community cable channel is just a pass-through. We're paid, we pay out. The district nurse is a necessity. I think everybody in this community can agree to that, as is the memorial library. We're talking about peanuts in a multi-million-dollar budget, and as you can see here, it causes a tremendous amount of ill will. So I would recommend to the selectmen, as well as the budget committee, that you rethink that the next time, and perhaps I'll be at those meetings. Thank you.
Ms. Brown?
By clumping all of these people together, all of these different organizations together, you are taking away our right to vote. You are taking a lot, there's never been clumps like this before. A few things, yes, but you put a whole bunch in, and I'm ashamed of you. We come to this town meeting because we want to have a say, we want to be heard, we want to be acted on. You've taken away that right. And there's not much sense in coming back, is there, if it's done like this again? This is the format you're going to use.
All right, Ms. Brown. The chair, the moderator has ruled that you cannot vary sums in the column that is already set out.
This is something new.
Is there a motion to appeal the moderator's ruling so as to allow modifying the sums in the lower column without changing the total amount? Is there such a motion?
Second.
Is it seconded? Is there discussion on the motion to allow changing some of the numbers in the accounts without changing the total? Any discussion on that motion? Yes, ma'am.
Janice Newell Long, 35 Union Street. An ignorant question. Is it possible to determine that we take, when the property that is tax acquired is sold, that the first $3,000 or $5,000 or whatever goes to the senior citizens, and the next one goes to the fireworks? If the fireworks draw 20 families to this town for a week, they're worth their money and then some. And people check these things out. It's important. And the senior citizens really are getting shafted. Thank you.
That is a matter that you can bring before the selectmen and your town government. It's really out of order for this particular meeting, but the thought is something that you can promote. Mr. Griffin, did you have a question or comment?
I wanted to keep my mouth shut, but I guess I can't. My interpretation is the opposite. I know I've always ruled differently on this. I think that the motion is not the recommendation in terms of the allocation. I believe the motion is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $124,089 for support organizations' accounts. And I think that the town meeting should be free and is free to reallocate, although it can create a mess. And I guess the other point is, and that's always something I've had a disagreement with, I understand the feeling of the selectmen and the budget committee that they don't want the town to override what they've tried to keep under check in terms of what the budget is. We clearly cannot increase the total amount of that figure because the selectmen chose to put that in. I've always felt that's inappropriate. I think the town ought to have more latitude. This is the sort of thing I think that drives down the number of attendees at town meetings. I think we ought to be enhancing the town meeting and not taking that away. Can I believe, and that's what I think we need to vote on, is whether or not we can reallocate if the town wants to reallocate, because I believe that the town can and should do that.
And that is the motion that's on the floor.
Correct, and I'm just speaking to that.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion which is on the floor, which is, as Mr. Griffin said, to reallocate some of the funds without changing the total? All in favor of adopting that motion indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? There are some opposed, but the reallocation motion is adopted, and so now, to the extent that you wish to make a reallocation, please state what you wish to do.
Amy Sawtell, 79 Townsend, Boothbay Harbor. I move that we move $200 from the fireworks fund to the senior citizens fund.
Questions on that point? Seeing none. Yes, sir.
Frank Hellman, 88 Appalachia Road. My question is, why are we picking on fireworks rather than harbor lights or the summer band concerts or some of these others?
Ms. Sato.
I selected them primarily because they got the greatest increase.
Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Sample, 84 Oak Street. I think it's really easy. The district nurse has had to go out and raise their own money, and they dropped their line item, and why the fireworks can't get their little buckets out in the stores and go rah rah for 4th of July and all that stuff. But we have a town to take care of, and I think that we've been asked a lot by the select people to raise money for certain things, and some people have. I think fireworks can raise their own money.
So the motion before the House is to modify the fireworks account from $5,000 to $4,800 and the senior citizens account from $800 to $1,000. Any further questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor of making that change indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? Looks like a unanimous vote. So the question.
No, there were some.
I missed someone opposed. Okay, there are votes opposed. Nevertheless, it passes. And that leaves us with the main motion, which has been to adopt a sum of $124,089 for the support organizations, with the support organization payments being made according to the modification that you have just made. All in favor of adopting that modified warrant article? Any opposed? And that passes. Thank you. Article 23 is to see if the town will raise and appropriate for the ambulance service accounts an amount. Now, the Budget Committee recommends $168,487. The Selectmen recommendation is $184,801.
I move to accept the Budget Committee recommendation.
Is there a second to that? Okay. The Budget Committee recommendation is the same appropriation as last year. The Selectmen's recommendation was this year's entire request, and I assume that both of them are to be paid out only on receipt of timely and accurate quarterly reports of revenues and expenses. But the motion before you is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate for ambulance services the amount of $168,487. Questions about that? Yes, sir.
Frank Hellman, 88 Appalachia Road. I have a question. It says payments will be dispersed only upon, excuse me, only upon quarterly reports. What happens if the amount requested in these reports exceeds the amount we appropriate?
We can only pay up to what's approved at town meeting. We can only pay what's approved at town meeting. We can't go over that.
So the ambulance service has to eat the shortfall. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I know that the Lincoln County group, the ones who stole our hospital, also are not asking often enough for our ambulance group to respond. They're getting the Central Maine and so on. And the selectmen are very knowledgeable about it, and I would like to make a motion that we approve their amend the motion to $184,801.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to amend the motion itself to include the Selectmen's number rather than the Budget Committee's number. The motion to amend is recognized. The time is now for you to discuss, question, and vote on the amendment, which is to change the amount from the Budget Committee's number to the Selectmen's number. Comments or discussion about that? Yes, sir, in the back.
John Hochstein, 142 Atlantic. Quick question, what is Lincoln County Healthcare, who is largely responsible for whatever reason for the increase in ambulance service costs to this community, what are they kicking in? And is it an annual commitment henceforth?
Is there anyone that can answer that question?
For Lincoln, is this on? Is this on? Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Lincoln County Healthcare gave us a one-time gift, but that was all it was. They are not supporting this town anymore. So there is no support from them in the budget that we're voting on today.
Mr. Sample.
It's interested me that that earlier on Article 21, we approved at the drop of a hat with nary a word said, an increase to the dump, I'll remind you, of $12,139. And once again, we're going to quibble over $16,314 for the ambulance service, which I believe, no matter how you feel about the closing of the hospital, is an even more important asset to this community. Now, I don't disagree that the ambulance service perhaps in the future might have to look at a different business model. I think that maybe they are, having spoken to some of their board members. But again, this seems to be, in Selectman Wolf's words, parsimonious to the extreme. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Yes.
Pull it down for the short person. Helen L. Farnham, Bay Landing Lane, Boothbay Harbor. Isn't the town getting together and supporting our ambulance service? It amazes me. We all use it, we all need it, and it's not just senior citizens that need it, which I am a senior citizen. I hate to admit it, but I am. So why isn't the town supporting this service? It's a very valuable service that we've had here for years, which I'm a charter member, as you all know. I don't understand. Just because they need new equipment, they need more training, we need to get people involved again. We need to get a younger group. I'm not sure which town it was now, but they have now got the younger people involved, being sort of, like an explorer thing. But they are getting the younger people involved. And every one of us here and out and about that aren't here today do have this service. And we really, really need it. A lot of you know I'm very passionate about it. But the town should come together and say, we want our ambulance service. We want our people to be safe and be able to get here and there. If I need one, I'm not going to call Northeast Overshoe. I'm calling Boothbay Region Ambulance Service. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got another gentleman while he's coming up. Remember, we're talking about a motion to substitute the selectman's number for the budget committee's number. Yes, sir.
Bob McFetrich, Middle Road. I just have two questions. One, if the budget committee and the board of selectmen could explain why this was the only article that they had a difference of opinion on, and also if it would be possible to hear from Director Ham why he needed the increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mary Neal on the Budget Committee. The thoughts of the Budget Committee on this were, we looked carefully at their budget requests. We've looked carefully at their business model and their budget requests through the years. In order to give a raise, it's look at what they've been doing, look at see if they've had increased work, see if their business model and practice is working, if they've been good stewards of the money that they've received. But in fact, we did not feel that that's the case. The call volume has actually decreased. We looked at that number. We looked at the inaccuracy in their budget presentations that we've had to look repeatedly at and go over, and the fact that their board structure is unacceptable, and that has been asked for several years to be changed, though they're working on that now. That had not happened before. So there were a number of factors that went to our decision to maintain them at the funding that they were last year, despite the fact that their call volume and workload has gone down.
Let me give the microphone to this gentleman. You want to speak to the question with this microphone? Who are you?
Robbie Ham, Chairman, Boothbay Ambulance. There's been obviously much debate over this at the Budget Committee and Selectmen meetings, budget meetings. Primarily, I think one of the biggest questions and requests that we were not comfortable with, we're showing a line item of $50,000 in fundraising to offset the budget. One of the requests was to up that to $75,000. We are starting a new fundraising, I would say, concept. We're going to look much harder at that, but this current year, just beginning that, we weren't comfortable putting that in there. So I think that's the biggest difference of opinion. I don't think that there was any major differences of opinion in what it actually takes to run the ambulance service and maintain the ambulance service. They are correct. We have battled with accounting methods and board structure over the past 2 years. Part of that being our focus has been on the transfer of medical care of the region from local to off the peninsula. The other piece of that is notable, where our fundraising is down and our call volume is down. Part of the call volume being down, although it's not easy to actually put numbers to it, is a new program that was grant funded last year, which is a community paramedicine program, which allowed us to, through Maine EMS and this grant program, to actually go out and do home visits. We augment the community nurse, we augment home health. A lot of times they can get a visit from one of those organizations once a week. We're obviously 24/7. That allows us, we do a lot of community paramedicine visits on Saturdays when other organizations aren't available. So I think that reducing call volume is something that we all should look towards, just like reducing hospital stays. The other thing that's notable is a lot of our funding recently and donations have come in the way of dedicated grants. Probably in the last 2 years we've received in excess of $150,000. And that's come from some outside organizations, grant funding, and some local residents who wanted their money used for a specific reason. That shows that fundraising is down because those particular items, they don't just go into the general equipment reserve and are able to be used for whatever we deem fit. They're used for whatever that person asked. The most recent one, which everybody will see coming up, is through a grant from a foundation made up of a couple of Southport residents. We're going to become a heart-safe community. We're in the process of deploying 28 AEDs around the community, some 24/7 accessible, some public places where they're only accessible when the business is open. But we have worked very hard at the patient care end of this and making the transition. I will admit that we've had some difficulty with our budgeting and our accounting practices. We've changed auditing firms. We have in the budget a new administrative assistant, which will clean that up in the future. And next month there will be a vote of the Boothbay ambulance members that will change our board structure to make it compliant with the towns and the state organizations.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, yeah. I'm Russ Hoffman, select person and 33 Powder Hill, West Boothbay Harbor. In addition to serving on this board, I also serve as the Boothbay Harbor representative on the ambulance board and have for the last year, and have gotten a very close picture of the operations of the ambulance and the development of that budget. I'll be quick to say that the initial budget request that we started discussing was about 25% higher than that 184,801 number. So it took some negotiating and wrangling among the ambulance board to get to the 184,000 number that you see here. And I want to speak in support of that number, the selectman recommendation. For me, there are four big things that influence the increase in cost since last year. The first is with the closing of our hospital, the ambulance service travels much further than they have in the past, from Boothbay Harbor to Damariscotta, Brunswick, or Portland, to serve our patients. And that, of course, increases the amount of time that those members and employees of the ambulance service are off on calls, makes it more difficult to obtain volunteer service from people. The second and perhaps most impactful thing to costs is the increase in state requirements for training that are brought to bear on the ambulance service members. And the third big item that I mentioned is that we're competing with other ambulance services for employees, and we need to maintain a certain level of payment for the folks that we do have. And last, as Robbie just mentioned, we've had some difficulty with our billing company over the last year. We've in fact fired them and hired a new, and are working to replace that service and get them back online. So, and again, as Robbie mentioned, we are committed to an increased fundraising activity in the coming year. So I will both warn you and encourage you to keep an eye out for those activities, because fundraising will be a much bigger part of our revenue going forward. Thanks.
Wendy had her hand up. I think I
Yes, Wendy. Go ahead.
Wendy Wolf, 69 McCown Point Road. I just want to add one thing. This was the area in the budget I was not parsimonious on. I do think it's very helpful to know that we all, budget and selectmen, have spent a tremendous amount of time on this element of the budget. If you look back in the ambulance funding over the years, we've gone from 29,500 to 38,215 to 146,000, 134 last year, and now up to 184. And so one of the things that we are trying to work with the ambulance service on is to try and help them be a viable business, as well as having appropriate town support for the service we have. And I think one of our concerns was during the last year, they had a lot of trouble with their billing department. We anticipate that the people they've employed for billing and collections will help them bring in the revenue that they deserve for all the service that they provide. But there is I think, expectation that this has to operate as a viable ambulance service from the revenues that other town ambulance services that are nonprofits just like ours can also generate, and be a little bit more self-sustaining than just requiring that whatever the budget is, the towns will keep putting in increasing amounts of money to continue to support the ambulance service. And I think everyone on this table, the selectmen and the budget committee, compliment the ambulance service for the fine work that they do, and know that this has been a very tumultuous transition time for them with the hospital closure, to try and figure out how they respond. And I think the selectmen's recommendation was an acknowledgement of trying to help them complete that tumultuous cycle to get on their feet, so that we can ensure that the ambulance service is strong. So,
Thank you.
Palmer.
Again, Palmer Payne with the Budget Committee. I had recent experience with the ambulance service in the horizontal. From my front porch to Miles Hospital, 19 miles, the bill worked out to $52 and some cents per mile. The ambulance service is highly dedicated. They are highly professional, and I have been in other ambulances in the military and other places, and they are equal or better than any I've ever been in. Their office procedures and financial work still needs a lot of study, and it has over decades. At one point, we asked them to start collecting their bills from the bills were not paid, and they agreed in town meeting. But they hadn't done it 2 years later until we brought it up again. For all agencies and private businesses asking for money from the town, the deadline for their application is the 31st of December in the preceding year. The ambulance service has failed to meet that mark, usually coming up no earlier than March of the following year, and is in continual discussions with the selectmen each year, unable in their front office to work out final figures that add up to what they had presented previously. The most recent meeting was, what, 3 days ago, from the 31st of December. There's a serious problem in not meeting the office deadlines. I realize these people are trained as medics. They're not trained as CPAs. But it's a frustration when things keep changing that way. And I believe, in my personal thought, that the reduced amount is a message to the ambulance service to get on the stick when it comes to meeting the deadlines for financial submission. If you don't do it on April the 15th by your income tax, the IRS doesn't give you a break. And the business responsibility of the ambulance service is a very important part. But as far as the individuals, they are highly trained, they're highly dedicated, and they come from some distances. When I went to Miles, I didn't know either person in the crew. One was from Augusta, and I forget where the other one was from, but I think it was somewhere up around Sugarloaf. Thank you very much. I hope you understand.
Okay, we've got another speaker here and one in the back, and then I hope we can vote on the motion to amend. Yes, sir.
Bill Hamblin, Selectman, 347 Lakeside Drive. I'll keep this short. I think you've already heard the major points, but I want to support you to support the Selectman's amendment for the higher amount. This is the most examined budget by far. We have met with the ambulance off and on a regular basis, and for me personally, going back 3 years, I came into this very skeptical, and the more I learned, the more I began to understand what a difficult problem they have. Do they need to improve their business operations? Absolutely. But I think we should give them the support now and give them a chance to do that. They are moving in the right direction. They are changing their boards. They have hired a new billing agent. So I think we should support the higher amount. Thanks.
Ms. Folger? The motion for the House is whether to modify the underlying article, which included the Budget Committee's number of $168,487, modify that by using the Selectmen's number $184,800. All in favor of amending by putting in the Selectmen's number indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? Some opposed, but that passes. So the motion before you is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate for ambulance service accounts $184,801. Are there other questions or comments about that? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion and opposed? It's not unanimous, but it passes with the Selectman's number. The next article is with regard to Maine statute, which is referred to as LD1. And before we put that on the floor, I'm going to ask the manager to give some description of what we're doing.
As you know, every year we vote on whether or not to go over LD1, so I just wanted to explain what LD1 is again. LD1 is a calculation that compares the state personal income growth rate, which the state provides to us, versus our own local property growth rate. The goal of this exercise is for personal income to grow at a higher rate than our local property growth rates. That's very hard to do here in Boothbay Harbor with the high valuation of property here. And our wages are not rising at an equal or faster rate than property valuation. So again, the budget that you just approved is over LD1 by roughly $12,000. I just want to remind everyone that there's no penalty for going over LD1. It's just an exercise to make people aware primarily. There's no LD1 police, as I say every year. So I would ask when people vote, they vote again this year. We've gone over it 7 out of the last 8 years. I would ask the town vote again to be in favor of going over the LD1. Thank you.
Okay, the article itself is to see if the town will vote to exceed the property tax levy limitation established for the town of Boothbay Harbor by state law in the event that the municipal budget approved by the preceding articles will result in a tax commitment that is greater than the property tax levy. Is there a motion? Do you move to put this on the floor?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. This is an article which requires a secret ballot, and we will undertake that shortly, but what, if any, questions or comments are there with regard to the motion that's before you? Seeing none, I will declare that we are in the process of conducting a secret ballot, and I will call it back to order when the clerks have concluded. The balloting will be done behind you, and it's time to do that. I want to call the meeting back to order. The votes are in, and Article 24 passes with a vote of 34 yeses and 8 noes. So Article 24 has been adopted. Article 25 and our subsequent articles are changes to some of your ordinances and codes. And so the presentation of the motion is to ask you to approve or disapprove the change, but you may not amend the language of the changes. So Article 25 is to see if voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend the current Administration of Government Ordinance, Chapter 2, Town Officials 2.6a, by amending the following sentence, quote, except as provided below, the town manager shall be responsible for hiring and firing of all municipal personnel subject to the board's approval, unquote. That's to be substituted by the following, quote, except as provided below in paragraph B, the town manager shall be responsible for the hiring and firing of all municipal employees. Department heads shall be appointed by the town manager subject to approval and confirmation by the Board of Selectmen. The town manager has authority to recommend to the board the removal of any department head for cause after notice and hearing, unquote. This change distinguishes between the town manager's appointments and the Board of Selectmen appointments, and that department head removals are recommended by the manager to the Board of Selectmen for cause after notice and hearing. Is there a motion to adopt Article 25, making the change?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's moved and seconded. Questions about Article 25? Mr. Sample.
I was told, and I think I understand that this is just cleans up the language, but that, without a doubt, scares the bejabbas out of me. Am I to understand that this is a series of checks and balances to the hiring and firing process, particularly with department heads? Is that what this is all about?
I would say that's true. It's also a clarification. The wording prior was fairly vague.
Right, it's kind of ambiguous.
It said all municipal personnel.
Yeah.
This now distinguishes department heads from that.
Right, okay, all right. Thank you.
Ms. Folger?
I'm just trying to understand the question mark after hearing.
It's probably a typo, to be honest with you. I just saw that too. It's not a question.
I don't believe that you need to amend it, but the moderator will declare that the language includes a typo, which is the question mark at the end of the word hearing, which is hereby excised.
Many of them have that, so we're going to see that more.
Okay. Questions are...
That's because at the beginning it's asking a question to see if the voters. That's why.
But
Yes.
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 Okay.
Outside
All right.
the quotes.
Gotcha.
in this motion and in several of the subsequent ones, the question mark, if it's there, will be removed from inside the quotes to outside the quotes. Any questions about the article as moved? Well, with the approval of our editor, all in favor indicate by raising their hands. Any opposed? Article 25 is adopted. Article 26, to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend the current administration of government ordinance, Chapter 2, Town Officials 2.6b by amending the following sentence. Quote, "The Board of Selectmen shall appoint for one-year terms all municipal officials required by general law, including deputy tax collector, deputy treasurer, assessor, town clerk, deputy town clerk, register of voters, chief of police, police officers, harbor master, deputy harbor master, fire chief, code enforcement officer, building inspector, health officer, plumbing inspector, animal codes officer, director of emergency management, director of emergency management, a deputy director of emergency management, and shellfish conservation warden, with the following, unquote, after the warden, with the following change. Quote, "The Board of Selectmen shall appoint for one-year terms all municipal officials required by general law, including finance officer, town clerk, register of voters, public works director, chief of police, harbor master, fire chief, code enforcement officer, and director of emergency management." Unquote, question mark. This identifies the Board of Selectmen appointments. All others would be town manager municipal appointments. Is there a motion on this
So moved.
article? Moved and seconded on Article 26. Questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Sample.
So the town manager will appoint only those people in the amended language, or the selectmen will only appoint the people in the amended language, and the town manager will do the deputy treasurer, assessor, and all that? Is that
Correct.
how that's going to work?
That's correct.
The
Yes.
latter.
Okay.
Other questions? All in favor of adopting Article 26 as it's been presented? Any opposed? Article 26 is adopted. And Article 27, to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to repeal the existing floodplain management ordinance, Chapter 170, Article 7, and enact an updated 2015 floodplain management ordinance as drafted by the state of Maine in accordance with Maine Revised Statutes Title 30A, Section 4352. The adoption of this model ordinance adopts the floodplain rate maps by reference and allows the continued participation of the town in the National Flood Insurance Programs. Failure to adopt it could mean suspension from NFIP, preventing flood insurance policies from being issued. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded to put Article 27 on the floor. Any questions, comments? All in favor of adopting Article 27 indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? That's a vote. Article 28, to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend Chapter 170, Article 11, parking areas by inserting the words, quote, is considered an accessory use or structure, unquote, and, quote, be associated with, unquote, and eliminating the word, quote, have, unquote. This clarification will classify parking areas as accessory uses to principal structures and require a principal structure for all parking areas. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions on Article 28? In the back.
John O'Connell, 10 Cedar Lane. Looking at this, I'm thinking in terms of two parking areas without accessory structures. I believe the people on Squirrel Island have a parking area beside the footbridge that does not have an accessory structure. And I'm not sure down near the boat area with Captain Fish whether he has, sorry, beg your pardon, the principal structure for that either. So my question would be, when people are trying to find solutions for parking problems, you're denying them the ability to put a parking lot pretty much anywhere except with a principal structure.
Anyone? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, what was the question exactly?
You've got a couple of areas where parking appears to be a necessity, but where there is no principal structure.
Those lots that you're talking about, John, are just legally non-conforming uses, and they'll continue to operate and won't be in violation. The creation of any new parking areas are what we're trying to, I guess, regulate in some respect, but more so clarify that they are required to be an approved use under the land use code, and not just, for instance, with the Squirrel Island proposition that happened on Campbell Street, going into a residential neighborhood, leveling the house and putting in cars. And that may not be in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance and the description of that zone. Does that make sense?
Mr. Sample?
I guess I'll concur with John. I don't like it. The term regulate isn't a real happy one for me. So if I wanted to create a parking lot on my property, as long as I left my house there, it'd be all right.
Well, what the first article does is say that it must be associated with an approved principal structure. And so while you could create parking that was connected with your residence, you would probably be challenged when it came to creating a commercial parking lot at your house.
Okay. Not being one to want to pave paradise and put up a parking lot, it strikes me that you're telling somebody what they can and cannot do with their own property they pay taxes on. Is this going to be a huge, given the property values in the town of Boothbay Harbor, is this going to be a real big problem?
Well, I don't know as we can foresee the future, but we've tried to look at a lot of hypothetical scenarios over the last year when the Board of Selectmen tasked the planning board with creating some of this language. We felt after a year of talking and a lot of revisions and meeting with the Lincoln County planner that these amendments didn't actually change what you can and can't do with your property. It really just clarified some of the language. For instance, right now, we still require to have a principal structure. That's still in the ordinance. That isn't something that's changing. We're only saying that it needs to be an accessory use to that principal structure. I don't know if that really matters. So I'm saying that you could still turn your property into a parking lot You would just need to have it in conjunction with something other than, say, a house, or it would also not be able to be without some sort of principal structure.
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess I don't understand. If I wanted to have a commercial, and I understand my property falls within a dead zone from a zoning standpoint in the town of Boothbay Harbor, so maybe it's not a good example, but so this limits that. If somebody wants to have parking like Ms. Hawk downtown, something like that, but they want to flatten their house, they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to have to. They're going to have to show that parking is an accessory to that building. Is that what I understand?
Correct.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yes, sir.
Big surprise, but
What do we do? It's on. I think it's on.
I'm not up on all of the details of this, but Mike or Jeff can correct me if I get some of them wrong. Link, the way I view this is we did have that incident where people wanted to put a parking lot in a residential area. The residences objected. I read, as a former planning board member and chairman, I read our codes, and I could come up with any one of 4 answers depending upon my personal interpretation of how that code was. It was a mess. And these changes, I believe, are attempts simply to clarify what is already there. If it was a permitted use, I don't think we've made any currently permitted use unpermitted by this. But we have defined what things are: a parking lot, a parking garage. So there's clear definitions, so that if you read it or I read it, we'd come up with the same answer. We may not like the answer, but we'd come up with the same answer. That's what these changes are meant to do, and I think that's what they do. So that's the lens I look at this with.
Pass it down.
A question on whether a parking lot has to have the structure, the accessory structure. Not understanding that. Consider the parking lot of the Congregational Church on Eastern and Townsend. There's no structure there. Is one required?
It's a non-conforming lot or use of a lot that doesn't fall under this change.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So if I can just kind of make sure I understand what you're saying, Bill, and you know how I can get. So this isn't any more restricting. I'm not voting for something that's going to be more restricting than the current ordinance.
It is not intended to be more restrictive. There's one caveat for there, though, which is under the old rules, you could come and argue that this isn't a parking lot, it's a field, and it ought to be permitted. And you can't do that anymore. So in that sense, it will be a little more restrictive because the definitions are clearer. But in terms of what our codes currently permit for where a parking lot can be and not be, none of that has changed. I believe that's correct. I'm getting a nodded yes from the chairman of the planning board.
Okay, all right, so I've got 3 people telling me this isn't going to be any more restrictive, other than, I get that, because I'm all about
semantics. You get the definitional
but,
issues.
Yeah, okay,
You can't slide through on a muddy definition.
All right, excellent, thank you.
Mr. Griffin.
Address this to either Mike or probably to Mike, is my guess, or Jeff. And I apologize for not reviewing this beforehand, but would that prohibit, for example, the Congregational Church having just purchased today or tomorrow the land across the street? Would that then prohibit the church from making that into a parking lot going forward if it were just happening for the first time tomorrow?
The answer is yes.
And right now, right now it's okay before we pass this. So it is making it more restrictive. So my concern is, and it's a common problem, a hard case makes bad law. You've got the situation on Campbell Street, which would have been terrible, and we're just trying to react against that, but we may be creating another more monster. That's my concern. But sounds like you still haven't resolved it. but is there some way that perhaps you could work more on it so that going forward, parking is an important need here in this region. So there are going to be some properties that are just land that might be a perfect place for parking. And I think what I'm hearing is you can't do it.
Without a principal structure.
So you can't do it.
Wait a minute, aren't there zones in town where parking lots are permitted?
Parking lots are permitted in certain areas. Yes.
Okay.
That's just it's an allowed use of the land use.
So it's only in residential zones where this would be an issue.
Mr. Planning Board Chair.
Mike Tomko, 59 Rhodes End. Just to answer what Chip was saying is that we do have, and as Bill had said, we do have an allowance for parking facilities. This first one that we started with was a parking area. Small difference, but a big difference when it comes to land use codes. And the facilities, and I'll read the definitions, an off-street ground level area usually surfaced and improved for storage, temporary storage of motor vehicles, or a deck structure, building or structures, or part thereof used or intended use for parking and storage of motor vehicles. So there we have a parking facility, and parking facilities are allowed and highlighted in our land use code and the label of districts. So there are areas where that can be. Again, this was just reacting to the Squirrel Island parking on Campbell Street. I hope that helps. Thanks.
Hold on, please. Yes, ma'am. You want to say something? I can't hear you. If you want to make a comment.
Is my beautiful parking spot safe?
Go ahead.
What?
Go ahead.
Yeah, is my parking spot safe?
Your parking spot at your house?
Yeah. Good.
Go ahead.
I just want Chip to, I want that question clarified. If the Congregational Church presently bought the property on Eastern and Townsend Avenue, say this next week, could we use it as a parking lot, or would we be restricted because there had to be a structure on it?
I think from what I heard Mike Tomko say that that area is not in the permitted parking areas. So I think the answer would be we would not be able to do that.
So that would not be allowed if we vote for this new.
If it were being installed for the first time tomorrow.
Thank you.
Well,
interpret that.
Clarify that, though.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be allowed as an accessory to the church, because the accessory use would be in the same lot as the church. That said, you could turn it into a parking facility. You could independently. Is that within the?
So what you're saying, Jeff, is in that particular example, where that's located on Montgomery Road and or Eastern Avenue and Route 27, that's a permitted use for a parking facility. Because as I understood what Mike Tomko was saying, there are some places where it is not permitted.
That particular lot, I'll answer to that lot, it would be, right now is an accessory use to the church. I assume that it is overflow parking for the church, or people use it when church is.
Well, that particular matter doesn't matter. I guess my point is, what my concern is has it been vetted enough so that there are plenty of places where we can have parking facilities in town? And that I'm unclear about in terms of where the areas are that would permit a parking facility as opposed to an accessory.
I think that Mike has his ordinance open to the land use table. He can tell you which zones parking facilities are allowed in.
Yes, ma'am.
Amy Sawtell, 79 Townsend. Not that we have any intention of doing this, but just to kind of maybe help clarify this. The United Methodist Church in Boothbay Harbor owns the house next door, which is currently my residence. should that church at some point in the future decide to level that house and make that a parking area, would that be allowed?
Connected to the church, I assume? Still connected to the church?
Yes.
I think that those lots, if they're next door, would need to be combined so that they are on the same lot.
Okay, the question is to see if the voters will amend the ordinance by making the changes that we've read. Are there any other comments or questions or clarifications? I'll call for a vote. All in favor of making the change indicate by raising your hand. All opposed? In the opinion of the moderator, the ayes have it. The positive vote passes and the article is adopted. Article 29, to seek no, I'm not in doubt, but if you wish to challenge that, that's your right. Okay, I will call for a revote and ask the clerks to help me out. Those in favor, please stand. If the clerks will count and let me know when you're done. Thank you. All opposed, please stand. What'd you get? And the affirmative vote is 31, and the noes are 16, so the article passes. Okay. Article 29, to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend Chapter 170, Article 11, accessory use or structure by inserting the words, quote, customary, unquote, and, quote, and located on the same lot, unquote. This change will require that accessory use be on the same property as the principal use and shall be commonly thought of as incidental or subordinate to the principal use. Is there a motion to put this before the House? Is there a second? It's moved and seconded. Questions on Article 29? Pastor.
Amy Sawtell, 79 Townsend, Boothbay Harbor. Just some clarification on what it currently says versus what we're changing it to.
The definition currently says an accessory use or structure is a use or structure which is incidental and or subordinate to the principal use or structure. Accessory uses, when aggregated, formed by collection into a mass or sum, shall not subordinate the principal use of the lot. A deck or similar extension of the principal structure or garage attached to the principal structure by a roof or a common wall is considered part of the principal structure.
Smith.
Yes. We are adding customarily in front of the word incidental. So it will say a use or structure which is customarily incidental, and then it will continue and or subordinate to the principal use or structure, and then we will also add and located on the same lot. That's the difference.
Anything else? All in favor of Article 29 indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? Article 29 is not unanimous, but it does pass. Article 30, to see if voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend Chapter 170, Article 11, principal structure by inserting the words, quote, is conducted or which is intended to be conducted as the main or primary use of the lot on which it is located and identified as an allowed use under the land use table, unquote, and, quote, a garage or a storage building such as a shed or barn may not be considered a principal structure for purposes of establishing a parking area or parking lot, unquote, and eliminating the words, quote, the primary use of the lot is conducted, unquote. This will define the principal structure as the one being related to a principal use that is established in the land use table, and will also prohibit a shed or garage from being a principal structure for purposes of creating a parking area or parking lot. A motion to put Article 30 before the House?
So moved.
Second? Okay. Yes, sir.
Frank Hellman, Appalachia Road. I'd just like to point out in the, at the end of the 5th line, the word principal is misspelled.
We'll correct that editorial error. Mr. Sample.
So if you've got a lot in the town of Boothbay Harbor that only has a garage on it, that's not a principal structure? Or that under this?
Currently, the land use code does not recognize as a garage as an approved use, and what we're relating principal structures to are approved uses on the land use table. And so what the purpose was that you would need to have a principal structure related to an approved principal use on the land use table. And that parking area would be accessory to that approved land use. A garage or a storage facility or a storage building like a shed are not approved uses in the land use table.
So correct me if I'm wrong, in the town of Boothbay Harbor, you can't just have a lot with a garage on it?
Theoretically, they're considered accessory structures and require a principal structure, which would be an approved principal use on the land use table.
Well, maybe we ought to be changing that.
Agreed. Something we're thinking of. Yep.
Yes, sir.
I understand that a little differently. I understand this to say that if you have a lot, you can put a garage on that and you can park your car in it. Is that right?
Again, currently, we don't have garages or storage buildings from a residential standpoint as being an approved principal structure currently under the land use code. So what we're saying is that if you have a lot and you have a garage on it, that's not an approved principal use.
I'm not talking about a parking lot. I'm saying if I have a lot and I want to park my car there, I can build a garage and I can park my car there. But I can't build a parking lot. Is that what you're saying?
That's something that has come to light actually as a result of this parking conversation. Currently, our ordinance considers garages to be accessory to principal structures. And what we are talking about trying to figure out language that will allow people to build garages on their land without a principal structure. But right now, that's a gray area.
I still don't understand it.
Any other comments or questions? The article is in front of you. All in favor of adopting Article 30, the changes in your ordinance, indicate by raising your hands. And opposed? I'd ask the clerks to assist me again. Those in favor, would you please rise? I think that just fails. Okay. And those opposed, please rise. The motion fails. Thank you all. Article 31, to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend Chapter 170, Article 11, Principal Use, by inserting the words, "the primary use to which the premises, i.e. the land, buildings, and other structures on a single lot of land are devoted, and the main purpose for which the premises exist and which is identified as an allowed use under the land use table," unquote, and eliminate the words, quote, "a use other than one which is wholly incidental or accessory to another use on the same premises, semicolon, the use of a structure or lot using the larger area of the structure or lot," unquote, question mark. Is there, this will define a principal use as one which has an identified and allowable use in the land use table. Is there a motion to put this before the House?
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments? Yes.
Have these code changes, seems to be since we've been through Article, 26, about 7 or 8 here about parking, have these been presented in a comprehensive overall public manner, either in the newspaper or at a public meeting on the changes in the parking that have been here? I mean, I feel fairly uninformed and very confused, and feel that we're giving mixed, that now we've changed, we approve some and we've not approved some. So it seems that the parking issue is going to be murkier and more confusing than it ever has been in this. So I'm just, I may have missed it, but I'm very confused, and I'm sorry I haven't read everything that I should have or been to the public meeting. If it was there, please enlighten me.
Mike Tomko,
Yes, sir.
59 Rhodes End. We've worked on this. We were tasked, I think it was last May or June, with the selectmen, and we've held meetings probably all the way up until January. They were all publicly announced. Many of them were attended by the press. There were reports that were in the paper. There were regular reports made to the selectmen. So there was discussion about this, and you can refer to planning board meeting minutes. So there's been a significant amount. And again, the attempt here was not to change the code. It was merely to clarify. And we had a review by Maine Municipal, by Jeff, by Town Council, and also a significant amount by Bob Fonts, who's no longer here this morning, the Lincoln County planner. It was with his help that these were drafted and crafted, an idea to clarify the language for us. So if you missed it, I'm sorry.
Is there a map or an overall plot plan? Maybe I didn't get the picture, of where this, what residential areas this affected.
We have a table of uses. Jeff's got a very large one in his office that shows the different districts throughout, and then matched to that is a table of uses of where parking is permitted and allowed, and others where it isn't. It's part of our code.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Just maybe to clarify, Mary, I'm looking at this table now in our codes. Parking lots and areas are permitted either by code enforcement permit or by a site plan review in all of our zoning areas. That is general residential, special residential, downtown business, marine, general business, and recreational. Parking facilities, those would be the things without an accessory structure, are permitted in general residential, downtown business, and general business. Again, it varies between just a building permit and a site plan review, depending.
Thank you, sir. Are there other questions on this article, Article 31? Mr. Sample.
I'll direct my question, can I direct my question to Jeff? We just talked about garages not being in the land use table and all of that stuff. It strikes me that maybe we ought to change the land use table before we start talking about clarifying the language in this. Because it looks like, and I use this example with Mr. McConnell, if I went and bought a piece of land in Boothbay Harbor, I couldn't build a barn. You know, not just a garage, a barn. Right, and without a house or a principal structure, that barn could not exist. Okay, all right. I don't care much for it.
Article 31 is before the House. Any further comments? All in favor of adopting Article 31 indicate by raising your hands. Any opposed? That passes. Article 32, to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend Chapter 170, Article 11 definitions by adding the following definition of a parking lot. Quote, parking lot. As used in Chapter 170, the term parking lot shall include parking area or parking facility, unquote, question mark. Is there a motion for Article 32 on the House?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions about this modification to the definition? Yes, sir.
All right, now I'm confused. We had parking areas and lots, which are generally more permitted than parking facilities, and parking facilities don't need a structure. But now we've defined parking lot as including a parking facility.
And a parking
That seems to undo all of that differentiation between facilities and lots.
I believe this was a clarification in the definition that didn't include either one.
Do you understand my point? Okay.
Mr. McConnell.
I tend to agree with Mr. Selectman Hamblin there. It now looks like somebody's got a house and 2 parking spots and now they're a parking lot, which I agree with you. I'm not sure what the intent is. If it's clarifying it, it certainly hasn't helped me.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Anybody wish to speak to that point?
I mean, the parking lot definition is actually suggested by Bob Fonts because periodically throughout Chapter 170, the term parking lot comes up. It wasn't clear whether it was. Bob Fonts, the Lincoln County planner, suggested that this definition would be included because the term parking lot appears sporadically throughout Chapter 170, which is the land use code. And he felt that this was a way to clarify what was meant by the word parking lot. Obviously, if it confuses things, that wasn't accomplished.
Can we?
I need the mic.
So, Wendy, we're looking. We're looking at the code here, and it looks as if we define parking area succinctly, and we define parking facility, but there is no definition for parking lot, so it seems circuitous to add a new definition, parking lot, that says you can either be a parking area, which we do define, or a parking facility, and a parking lot is either one of those. So I don't think it helps us differentiate anything at all. Sorry to say that. So.
Except that parking lot is mentioned numerously in the code already.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think we need a definition for parking lot. I don't think this is it because it shouldn't have the word parking facility included in it. And since we can't amend the wording on the floor, I would recommend that we vote this down and come back with a proper definition next town meeting.
We have before us Article 32. All in favor of adopting it indicate by raising your hands. It's unanimously disapproved. All opposed? Thank you. To see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote, Article 33 is to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend Chapter 170, Article 11, definitions by adding the following definition of garage. Quote, garage, a structure in which there is legal vehicular access from a public or private right-of-way designed for the storage of motor vehicles, boats, or other personal property of the property owner, unquote, question mark. This is a definition clarification. Is there a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Questions or comments about what a garage is? Mr. Sample.
What's the definition now? Oh, okay.
There is no current definition.
Not that everybody doesn't know what a garage is, but fair enough.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir, Mr. McDonald.
And what's the difference between a garage used for storage and Link's barn that he wants to build for rabbit food, whatever he keeps? I mean, you know, there's a little ambiguity.
I believe the garage focuses on storage of vehicles. I'm sorry, a garage. Microphone is, but a garage is primarily used for vehicular storage of boats, other personal property. We're not limiting it to vehicles. But I think that was the intent, was to just give a common sense definition of what everybody considers a garage to be. We just didn't have anything in the ordinance. Yeah, I know it's contradictory.
Yes, Mr. Griffin.
Maybe, perhaps another ambiguity is that maybe most of our houses would be considered garages because the definition doesn't say primarily, and many houses have parts of their house as a garage.
I agree with you. Again, this is some good input, and maybe we just go back and revise it for next year.
Article 33 is before you. All in favor of adopting this modification to the definitions or adding a definition indicate by raising your hands. And opposed? It fails. Article 34, to see if the voters of Boothbay Harbor vote to amend Chapter 170, Article 5, Site Section 170-69, Site Plan Review Standard, sub C, by inserting the words, quote, shall comply with, unquote, and quote, and the applicable performance standards of Article 4, unquote, and by eliminating the word, quote, C, unquote. This change will ensure that the applicable performance standards related to parking as well as the parking standards found in Section 170-50 are reviewed during site plan review processes. Is there a motion to put Article 34 before the House?
So, second.
Okay. Questions or comments about Article 34? Yes.
Sorry, I'll just...
Turn it on.
This is really not about Article 34. I just want to share that as a select person that you just reelected, it's interesting to share my frustration reading these as I was frustrated sitting out there in town meeting trying to understand these without the context of the original language. And I think that we should plan to work with the planning board and others to try and present these in a way that is much more transparent and easy to understand than trying to just parse words to change, because you don't have the full information in front of you. I think it makes it exceedingly cumbersome to decide this, and I, for one, will be talking about this. So thanks for this feedback. I think the Planning Board does great work. I just think we aren't presenting the information very well.
Mr. Sample.
Jeff, does this directly tie Article 4 to tie Article 5 to Article 4 in the site plan review that Bill talked about in having parking facilities? I think I got the language right. Is that what this does? Does it hook it all together where it wasn't before?
So currently under site plan review, one of the things the planning board reviews is section 170-50. That's parking standards. Okay. We also have performance standards, which are in a separate section that also mention different parking requirements for different uses. And it just didn't reference those other performance standards specifically. So these just bring it all back together and gets a little housekeeping done in the book.
Just hooks it together so that the site plan review is more comprehensive, basically.
You got it.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else with regard to the proposed change in Article 34? Mr. McConnell.
Sounds a little silly, but could you read the sentence from which the word C is being deleted?
C subsection 170-50.
Yeah, could you just read it with and without C?
Okay, what it currently says is parking layout and design, C subsection 170-50. What it will say if this is passed is parking layout and design shall comply with 170-50 and the applicable performance standards of Article 4.
All in favor of adopting Article 34 as it's been presented? Any opposed? That passes. So you got some changes to your ordinances and some that aren't changed. Now, I appreciate the courtesy that you've shown me and the help we've given in getting this warrant set of articles concluded. Apparently, I managed to have Stephen Lorraine elected to the sewer district when I think he prefers to serve on the community school district, so let me correct that. And so that I can go and check whether my parking is appropriate or not, would you vote to end this meeting, sine die? Second. All in favor indicate by raising your hands or walking out. Thank you very much.